In episode number 269, we cover the Disney 20th Century Fox talks and what this could have meant for the big companies, the two biggest Marvel holders.
We're also talking about the Red Sonja film reboot.
And Greg Capullo's next project for DC Rebirth.
And more.
Hello and welcome to the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week, ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I'm Daniel, and as you may have heard before, Kelli is off on maternity leave. She'll be back in one or two more episodes. She is once again well recovered. She's ready to be back. Next week we're going to have another guest, and this week we have a last-minute guest who filled in and on a much shorter notice than he gave me last time. He was mentioning right before we recorded, and we'll touch on it. But he's been on the show before. He's done his own podcast. You've heard him before multiple times, seen him on Twitter, on Facebook. And this is Matt from the Super Side Up podcast. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. Happy to jump right in.
Yeah, man, I know it was last minute, but again, it's a huge thanks and a huge help. And because of Matt joining us, we're able to have a 269 on this week's episode. So be sure to send them a big thanks on Twitter and on Facebook. But for anyone that may have just joined us for the very first time, every episode is someone's first. Give us a little background on how you discovered this world of superheroes and the Super Side Up podcast and what's been going on with that.
Discovering the world of superheroes, I think I was kind of like born into it. Like it was pretty much encoded in my DNA from being a baby. The first movie my parents ever took me to was the original Star Wars back in '77. Not to date myself or anything, but even though I was a little baby and couldn't remember that, I've been into Super Friends, the Batman '66 show. Like it just compounded from there and there. There was a little bit of a part in the mid 80s where I went just strictly G.I. Joe, Robotech, Transformers, like anything that was like cool transforming vehicles. That's basically what I was all about. And then in '89, the wonder that was Tim Burton's Batman came out, and then that pulled me firmly back into superhero comics from there on out. And then as far as like the podcast Super Side Up, that show we talked every week about comics that have adapted to TV and movies. Right now, we're a bit of a golden age where there's almost literally too much to watch right now. Any week there'd be 10. On a heavy week there'd be like 10 shows and a movie to watch, and that still wasn't covering everything. So that's not counting like your Riverdales or your Winona Earps or stuff that's coming up. But that was the Super Side Up podcast. And right now we're on a bit of a hiatus. Our lives have suddenly diverged. Mikey, he works two jobs and he's in a relationship, and that's getting serious. So, he wants to take a break to work on to do other things and devote some more time to his relationship. Blaine is getting married, and at the time this drops, he gets married in 2 weeks. So he's been busy with last minute prep for that, and he wants to move on to other things. He's decided if he wants to do another podcast, he wants to do something that's strictly Star Wars, and that could be a little bit of burnout, just because like I've actually didn't think I would, but I've actually enjoyed having a little bit of a break the last couple of weeks because I found myself allowing some shows to build up, and oddly enough, I've actually, in the same time, I have now found myself in a relationship that's just starting.
Oh, nice.
Nice. It's going very well, and if she hears this, hey Marky, it's off to a great start. And I don't think that I would with the other things that I have going on between work, a social group I admin for, and various other things, that this pulling off the podcast right now would be extremely difficult. So right now I'm giving a little bit of a breather. Mikey and Blaine have decided that they feel that their time with the podcast ran its course. I do want to pick it up again at some point. Right now I'm just in the process of kind of figuring out what, give myself a little bit of a breather. It's been 2.5 years of just solid work on it, and nearly 130 episodes. So it's not a small body of work we've amassed in 2 years, and so I'm just enjoying a little bit of a break, and then we'll figure out, maybe in early next year what if there is a future, and if I can find some other co-hosts that are willing to watch as much TV as me.
Can we call this the official Super Side Up podcast press release? Can we just have this show be the official press release for it?
This can be the audio version of it, because I did a post on the Facebook page for it when we decided that we wanted to take a break.
Okay, well, that's what I'm going to call it.
So this can be the official audio press conference.
No, that's awesome. That's congratulations on all the changes recently in your life, and the other hosts as well. I mean, it's all good things. It doesn't sound like it was it's a break over a negative for a negative reason. So it's fantastic.
Yeah. So it's all for good things. We put in a lot of work. It was a lot of fun, and just with the directions our lives are going in right now, I'm excited about my new relationship. Mikey's excited about his, and Blaine is getting married. So finally, to my cousin, he's only been with her for about 6 years now. So it's good to see things going it wasn't over some big disagreement, or we just something negative. So it's the best possible reasons why we're giving it a break.
Okay, that's great. And hopefully this kind of scratches that podcasting itch for a little bit on this episode. And again, that's a huge thanks and a huge help to Matt for joining us and doing the news. This is the first time we do this kind of format. So this is basically like you're sitting in Kelly's seat and the other guests that have been doing the show for the last 4 or 5 weeks. Yeah,
that's awesome. This would be like the side item segment we had on, on Super Side Up.
That's right.
This is the front part of the show.
Awesome. So with that, let's jump into, of course, the news for the week.
Millennium Films is moving forward with a live-action Red Sonja reboot, according to Deadline. Quote, "We have been waiting for the right time for this remake," said producer Abby Lerner. "And with the success of Wonder Woman, the audience has spoken. They want female heroes."
He's not wrong, right? Is any studio right now saw the amount of money that Wonder Woman made and went, okay, what do we have? What property do we have that's like Wonder Woman? And some small member of that particular group in Millennium Film said, we've got Red Sonja. And they're like, oh, fucking brilliant. Let's do it. Fast track that shit.
Exactly. And stylistically, it's not all that different from Wonder Woman as far as a woman, I'd be interested to see how they redesigned her typical outfit, which is the chainmail bikini. Mm-hmm. That's really not going to fly with today's audience.
No, probably not. I think they're going to take Gail Simone's, which would be the second thing if it's true, Gail Simone's property or her run on Red Sonja, in which, she had the chainmail bikini on some points, but then she had her in all kinds of different outfits as well. So she honored the traditional outfit, but then also gave her something new, made her fierce. It was an excellent run. And if they go with that version of Red Sonja, that'd be once again, the second film adaptation for Gail based on her comics.
And just about anything would be better than the original version. The previous version was made in 1985, starring Brigitte Nelson, former companion of Sylvester Stallone, and Arnold Schwarzenegger was actually in this movie, not as Conan. Although when I did see this movie as a kid, I'm like, what's Conan doing here? Why isn't Conan kicking ass?
See, so it wasn't Conan? Because I was always under the impression that it was.
It looked just like Conan, but and it's been too long since I've seen it, but I'm pretty sure it was not Conan.
That's so bizarre. Pretty much the same character.
It was like, well, Conan the Barbarian was hot, and they probably had some kind of contract, something with, associated with that with Schwarzenegger, and basically here, put on this, just show up and play Conan light.
It could have worked out too, because Red Sonja had her debut in Conan's Marvel series, which later became an independent property owned by Luke Lieberman, and that's of course Red Sonja, who is now being published by Dynamite.
Yeah, didn't the Dark Horse do it for a while, or am I?
I believe they did. She's been on several different publishers at the moment.
Dynamite.
Yeah, Dynamite, they did a crossover. They talked about doing a crossover with DC when DC was thinking of actually buying up Dynamite. And people were saying, oh, they need to put her in Wonder Woman. They need to put her in Gotham with Batgirl. Like, just have, and even Gail Simone was like, I would love to just bring her into, because she was writing, I believe she was writing Batgirl at the moment, or she had just wrapped up. And she said, I would just love to bring all these characters from these different properties and publishers and make one giant book. And instead, she did one for the Dynamite characters, the females, and it did okay. It didn't really take off like I thought it would, but that would have been really interesting if DC bought up Dynamite.
Yeah, they do have some interesting licenses.
Are you going to go see the Red Sonja reboot? Are you going to wait and see what Millennium Films does with it?
I want to see what they're giving me first. I want to see who's casting, who's directing. I've got to see too. I don't keep up with the comic books, and like I said, my only exposure was the movie, which I'm not going to judge this by a movie that's from 32 years ago. But I got to see a little bit more than this. And right now, it's just, of course, it has the air of, well, let's just start digging to see. Everyone's digging to see what female hero that they can adapt, and not all adaptations are created equally. Every time Disney puts out an animated movie, you've talked about it before. There's always an off-brand version of it.
Definitely, absolutely. And speaking of Disney, there is a full cast listing for the live-action Lion King Disney film that is coming summer 2019. And the one actor who returned from that animated adaptation is Mr. James Earl Jones, who is, of course, Mufasa.
Yeah, that's like the one you cannot replace.
Right.
Yeah, if he is still breathing, you have him do two things: voice Darth Vader and Mufasa.
That is, I mean, Disney would have been crucified if they replaced James Earl Jones. That would have been a big no-no.
Yeah, no one's crying over Matthew Broderick or Jonathan Taylor Thomas being recast.
Nope. The animation supervisor for the film has previously worked on Avatar, The Jungle Book, and World War Z, so I expect a very similar look to The Jungle Book for this live-action Lion King.
Yeah, the animation in Jungle Book was amazing.
It really was, and when they first announced live-action Lion King, people were thinking of like the stage play from Animal Kingdom, in which, to anyone that's not familiar, it's just actors wearing like, costumes, lion manes, and they're just regular people running around, jumping around.
A lot of puppetry.
Right, tons of puppets, and they're like, is that what it's going to be? And obviously it ended up being more like The Jungle Book, which now, having seen The Jungle Book, and back then it hadn't released yet, I think people feel a lot more comfortable about a live-action Lion King.
Yeah. I'm really excited about this cast, which also includes Donald Glover as Simba, Beyonce as Nala, John Oliver as Zazu, and Seth Rogen as Pumbaa.
Big names, right? Just anyone they can slap on that. For that teaser trailer, it could just be the names and a lion roar. That's all it's going to be.
Oh, that's all you need.
I'm going to see it. I'm really interested to see how they do Scar, because he had such an interesting character design in the animated one. How they do the hyenas, and what kind of stylistic differences they do, or if they try to go with something hyper realistic.
They've got my money, because I think they'd also announced Hugh Jackman was going to be playing Scar.
Did that happen? That'd be amazing.
I think it did. Like I have to look that up to confirm it, but I'm pretty sure Hugh Jackman was cast as Scar. So like they've got my money with the cast before him.
And we've got more Disney news, of course, this week.
This is huge, potentially huge. Bloomberg has reported that talks over the Walt Disney Company buying 20th Century Fox have recently ceased, but could resume in the future.
Fucking bombshell.
That, when I saw that, like every nerd on the planet all of a sudden imagined the Marvel Universe being as close to complete as it could possibly be.
Yeah. Every nerd came simultaneously. Everyone was happy. But then looks like talks did cease, at least for the moment, as you mentioned. But due to the report that released, stocks for both Fox and Disney went up 8.9% and 2.4% respectively.
Yeah, so Disney's got more valuable, but it also became harder for them to buy Fox.
Because of is it a legality thing?
Oh, no, I think because of the stock rising, nearly 9%, that's going to raise the price of the asset.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
It's interesting. Like Fox selling off their movie division, which is basically the cornerstone of the entire Fox empire, just seems weird.
Yeah, I don't know why I mean, are they in financial trouble, or is Disney simply that lucrative? I know there were some moves made throughout the company to cut back on a lot of the employee hours, and last time they did this, and this is from someone I know, and I'm not going to mention who that is, but they said that last time the company did this was when they bought Star Wars, and now we know why they were making those moves.
Well, for Disney, yes, Disney is that lucrative. They have all the money, and I think they're trying to. Obviously, they don't want to overpay, but they have a vested interest in trying to get to pay. I mean, if the asking price is $10 billion, hell, if it's $20 billion, in the long run, it would be worth it to them, because that's going to put Avatar under their roof, because they've got that expansion in Animal Kingdom. So they'll own the film rights to Avatar. They'll get the film rights back to the original Star Wars, the first 6 Star Wars movies. They'll finally have distribution of that. They'll get the X-Men united in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They'll get the Fantastic Four, which is yet to have a good adaptation. And if anything goes to show, like, I know you're not as big a fan of the Marvel movies, but they've shown that with Spider-Man Homecoming that they can at least right the ship in the minds of those people who are fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, like, they should pay all the money. What is surprising, though, is that Fox really hasn't had that much of a good track record out for the last year or so. Last couple of years, like, their film division is actually suffering right now. They're losing ground to, like, Warner Brothers and Disney and Lucasfilm, which is part of Disney, obviously. And if Disney buys it, then game over for anyone who tries to compete against them.
Yeah, that's the one thing that a lot of people on Twitter that were against this deal were worried about. One, and you put it perfectly, like, they would do right with people that love this stuff right now from Marvel. Like, I liked Old Man Logan. I liked X-Men 2. I liked First Class. Like, I don't want to see those future versions of that go away. And I know that if it went back to Disney and Marvel, it'd be a more jokey universe with the X-Men, and that's not for me, So that's one part. I was on that crowd of like, no, I don't want to see that buyout. But I know for a lot of fans, they want to see the Silver Surfer and the Fantastic Four fight Thanos and the rest of the galactic villains of the Marvel Universe. They want to see Galactus maybe be the even bigger bad guy behind Thanos after Infinity War. So I understand why it's exciting for fans of the MCU.
It's also exciting for fans of Hugh Jackman, because the one thing he said he would come back to resume playing Logan is if he could do a team up with the Avengers.
That's true. See, me and a customer were talking about this today. If obviously they do a reboot of the X-Men universe to fit under the Marvel umbrella, where would that leave Hugh Jackman?
They would, honestly, as much as I would love to see that, him interacting with the Avengers and all that, that Logan movie, like, that's the end. They just need to have a clean break, recast, start from scratch with them, just like they did with Spider-Man. It's a whole new thing. They're not going to want to lean on there's so much that had happened with the X-Men, and their timeline is all out of whack with the time travel and all
right.
That it would just be a confusing thing to kind of try to shoehorn into the MCU. I mean, not that they've got enough talented people that they could probably figure a way around it, but having Hugh Jackman in an Avengers movie as Wolverine, it would basically be like the very definition of stunt casting and stunt marketing, because it would only be for that one movie. And if you're not going to have him back for multiple movies, just give us a new Logan with his blessing.
No, you're absolutely right. That would be like the one time, and even Hughes already said that it takes such a toll on his body to bulk up for the role of Wolverine that he considers it torture, and I definitely see why. So to do it one last time, like you said, would be for a big event film. But I think moving forward, no fans, nor you and I, would blame them for recasting the character completely and starting from scratch if this deal ever happens.
Oh yeah. But hopefully talks resume and they get this deal done, because I think I've seen plenty of decent X-Men movies. What I really want is a Fantastic Four movie done at least half right.
Plus the Star Wars trilogy belonging to Disney. They'd have Submariner completely back, so they could use him in one of the movies. There's just so many possibilities for these movies in the future, should talks resume.
Yes.
So flipping on over to the DC side, there is a ceremony taking place on December 8th. New York City will be putting up a Bill Finger Way street sign to honor Batman's co-creator.
It's about time. This sign is going to be placed at East 192nd Street in the Bronx, in the northeast corner closest to Poe Park. Poe Park is where, according to the Finger family, Bill Finger and Bob Kane first talked about the ideas that would become Batman.
It seems like the last 2 years, a lot of people have learned this information of, wait a minute, Bill Finger was really the one responsible for the iconic traits of the Batman, and not so much Bob Kane as many people assumed him to be, for example, like the Stan Lee of the Batman universe. Right. And this documentary came out and people saw it on Hulu. I remember I had friends telling me, like, dude, did you see that Bill Finger documentary? And I'm like, I backed the book by Ty Templeton like 6 years ago, and we talked about it on the podcast, where he told the history of Bill Finger through a Kickstarter project. And it's like, yeah, this thing has been in the works. And I think he talked about it in the documentary, actually. I think he might have written that one too. And it's like, this has been rumbling and building, and now it's like any relatives to Bob Kane must be like, oh shit, what do we have?
Well, I mean, the Finger name was basically forgotten. Amusing side note, I used to have a basset hound who passed away a long time ago, but I named him Schuster after one of the co-creators of Superman. But I always wanted to get him, like, because he was a basset hound, I always wanted to get like a smaller, like, dachshund, and I was going to name him Finger.
That would have been great. Is this an example of, maybe a rare example of history will correct itself over time and people will be credited? It's wonderful to see, because you don't see it often, and even less on the comic book world that we love.
Yeah, eventually history will write itself. I remember, I mean, I didn't see it. I was too young, but when I went to the Joe Kubert School, there was teachers there who would relate a story about them going to see Superman the movie back in 1978, and it was a huge deal that Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster were credited in the opening the opening credits of that movie, because, you know, for decades their names weren't associated with it. They weren't getting anything, and like they finally, like, because of like people like Paul Levitz and other people within the company had fought for them to get to create the recognition and stipend that the royalties that they should be getting from the character, and the families still argue and still were litigious for a long time, even up to a few years ago, about who really owns Superman, and but that was probably the first thing one of the first big blows for creators getting the recognition that they deserve.
And Broquettes, if you haven't seen the Bill Finger documentary yet, once again, it is up on Hulu. Highly recommend it if you want to learn the history and recognition of the character of the Batman, and what traits and what recognition the Finger family did not receive over the years. And it's really riveting stuff, and it's great. Now, moving along here, the biggest acquisition recently, you know, Disney hasn't gotten theirs yet, but DC landed a big blow to Marvel and Disney by signing on a multi-year exclusive deal with Marvel's very own Brian Michael Bendis, and this was announced over Twitter.
It's a huge deal, and we have a quote: "We are beyond thrilled to welcome Brian Michael Bendis exclusively to the DC family with a multi-year, multifaceted deal," reads DC's tweet. "He's one of the premier writers in the industry, having created so many unforgettable stories wherever he's been, and we can't wait to see what he has planned for the DC universe."
End quote. And of course, Brian Michael Bendis he created the Ultimate Universe, and this is the universe in which a lot of the MCU was inspired, Nick Fury being the biggest part of that. And then he's done a ton of event books for Marvel, including, I believe, Secret Invasion was one of them, Civil War II. Miles Morales is a big character that's about to show up in the Spider-Man Homecoming films. So this is a creator that is not short of ideas, not only on characters but on stories. And whether or not you think the stories are good or not, that's, you know, reader's preference. But the guy he can definitely, rattle the cages. He's got several ideas, and who knows what he has stored up for the DC universe.
And we have a quote from Bendis that says, "This is real. I love you all. Change is good. Change is healthy. And bursting with ideas and inspirations. Details to come. Stay tuned." End quote.
One of the funny tweets I just read was that he said, I didn't know how many people wanted me to write Shazam until this deal came forth. Like, that's the number one thing that people are tweeting to him about. But two, he said that he's been working very hard over the past couple of years to lose weight, and he has lost it, and he's maintained, that steady weight that he has now. But when the deal broke, they were using pictures from years ago, and he's like, God damn it, like all this work I did, and they're still using my old ass pictures.
Yeah, I'm super excited. The one thing that I know that he wrote for DC before he was exclusive to Marvel was there was a Batman anthology series. I want to say it was like a quarterly or something like that, but he did a short story in it called Citizen Wayne, in which the biggest adversary of Batman is actually Alfred, because he knows all his strengths, all his weaknesses, how to take him down. So it was basically an Alfred versus Bruce story.
Is that where people got the idea of, like, what if Alfred was making up the villains so that Batman can feel like he's actually, saving Gotham, but in reality it's Alfred that's been undercover as all these villains the whole time?
I wouldn't doubt it. Things that grow big start from kind of small things, but I haven't seen Citizen Wayne like referenced in a very long time. But this is kind of like one of those viral things that it probably could have started from this. Mm-hmm. And I really want to see Bendis do a Batman run, because his bread and butter and what he started and that got him the attention of Marvel was doing very noir detective stories with like Goldfish and Jinx, Torso. I mean, I think he could do like I think he could probably become the closest to doing a modern Frank Miller run on Batman.
Yeah, the one that people have been running to the most is, I think, the most obvious choice, and that I think it's because of his work on the Avengers and on the Ultimates, is people want to see a Justice excuse me, sorry, my dog is freaking out, a Justice League ongoing from Brian Michael Bendis. They feel like he would need something larger with weight for the Bendis name.
I could see that, but I want to see him build to that. Handle some of the singular characters first, and that a lot of that comes from because when he started at Marvel, when the Ultimate Universe was launching, like he was originally supposed to do both Ultimate Spider-Man and Ultimate X-Men, and he didn't do Ultimate X-Men because he didn't feel like he had a handle on doing a team book, and that was something that he grew to over time. And not to say that he can't do it. Obviously, he's proven for years now that he can do a team book. Right. Particularly starting with Avengers Disassembled is where he really started doing the team book stuff. But I would like to see him give us a good, clear, strong version or voice on a couple of singular characters, and then go into like Justice League.
The other rumored acquisition that apparently DC and Hickman have been in talks now is what they're reporting. Hickman has not signed on to DC, but it sounds like DC's really trying to. I mean, what other big name would you say, aside from Dan Slott, I guess, would Marvel have under their belt if both Hickman and Bendis moved over to DC?
I mean, maybe not as far as writers, but artist Steve McNiven.
Yeah, he hasn't been doing a ton lately, and certainly not one that that is moving the needle, if you would.
Right. I mean, this could be the thing that kind of re-energizes him, because he's basically, kind of in the Marvel bullpen, not really doing much these days.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that they're going to have to do, because a lot of people have been asking who's Marvel going to replace the gap that Bendis is leaving. But, I'm thinking, no, I think they're going to move someone up and give someone a shot at telling their story in the Marvel universe and building their name, much as Bendis and the rest of these superstars built theirs.
What I want to see Hickman do? And it'd be real easy to throw on like a Justice League or Justice Society book, but I really would like to see him do like Challengers of the Unknown.
Is that because of the Fantastic Four?
Not because of. I mean, there's that small element to it, but like I think that Challenge of the Unknown, like his run on the FF, has like the hallmark of just doing like that weird kind of throwback, kind of like larger than life pulp sci-fi kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he could. I think every once in a while they keep wanting to revisit the Challenge of the Unknown. I think he's probably one who has the right sensibility to really do something interesting with that.
Yeah, do you think even Hickman can sell the Challengers in 2018?
I'd say let him do a mini series first.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Then they can pull a Star Wars Darth Vader or any number of minis that turn into ongoings. That's the safe route, right? Like, okay, this is selling. Why don't we just keep it going? And why don't we make this an ongoing?
That was a common thing back in like the 80s with, I remember when Transformers, like, that comic.
Oh, that's true.
Started as like a 4-issue, limited series. And then all of a sudden, like issue 5, it was branded with, number 5 of an unlimited series.
Yeah.
And so like it's something that's happened before. They just, I think more not as common these days, just because it seems like every time a new big name creator comes out, they just relaunch the book.
Right, with the new number 1.
Yeah.
And no word yet on what Bendis will be working on. Keep an eye on his Twitter, and I'm sure DC will let you know what it is. They're going to make a big thing, just like when John Romita Jr. joined DC. Romita is coming, every ad on every DC book. But we do have some reactions from the industry, and they're all kind words from people that have worked with Brian. And this one comes from Jimmy Palmiotti, who said, quote, "I think he keeps both companies on their toes, and especially Marvel, which will have to fill the huge gap he is leaving behind," end quote.
Longtime partner of his, Mark Bagley, says, "My initial reaction was, of course, surprise. I don't think it was anything about the industry except that the companies are competing for the best talent," end quote.
Couldn't agree more. John Suntris, who has the Word Balloon podcast, said, quote, "Going back to our earliest podcast chats, he's been talking about what he'd love to do with Batman and writing a noir-style take on Plastic Man to harken back to his original police comic stories of the 1940s. It's very exciting news," end quote.
And then we have Gail Simone, quote, "It's hard to imagine a Marvel without him, but it's delightful to imagine a DC with him. I think this is some of the most exciting comics news in years, and I wish him every success," end quote.
And finally, Joe Quesada from, of course, Marvel CCO said, quote, "While I will undoubtedly miss having him at Marvel, I want to congratulate Bry on his upcoming gig at DC and wish him nothing but success. As a fan, the change of cornerbox will not dampen my desire to read whatever he does next and look forward to his upcoming projects," end quote.
Yeah, I remember Joe Quesada singing the praises and telling, I think it was a CBR interview, like back in the early 2000s, before Ultimate launched. Said, "Remember this name, Brian Michael Bendis. You're going to be hearing a lot and seeing a lot from him. He's like the next big thing." And I think it was like right after that, I had met Brian Michael Bendis at a con just outside of Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. And he was tight-lipped on like what he could talk about. I just picked up some powers and got him to sign some his trays from his creator-owned stuff. And like the month or two after that meeting him, they announced the launch of the Ultimate Universe. And so like Joe Quesada, backed the right horse.
Definitely did, and maybe we'll see something Brian does in maybe in the DC universe on the big screen in 5 or 10 years. Who knows? I mean, once again, the guy has ideas and he can create new characters that resonate with people. So very excited to see what happens over the next year.
Yeah, it'd be interesting stuff. Sticking with DC, Dark Knight's metal superstar artist Greg Capullo recently ran a poll on Twitter over what he and writer Scott Snyder should work on next. The results of the poll, we have Wonder Woman at 44%, Swamp Thing at 56%. And when asked why those were the only two options, Greg responded by saying that those were the only two characters he's interested in working on next.
And his longtime partner, Scott Snyder, previously wrote a Swamp Thing ongoing in 2011 with the New 52 relaunch, which was awesome. Great run with Swamp Thing. And I mean, that's Greg Capullo right now he can point to any character, any fucking book he wants to do, and DC will say, how much will it be?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the guy has carte blanche to do whatever he wants, and he and Snyder have that special alchemy that certain creative teams just have, that whatever they do is just going to be special. Like, you want them to have good, healthy, long runs together.
You put them on the Challengers and make that a fucking ongoing from issue 1.
There you go.
Man, a Swamp Thing story, a Swamp Thing comic book from Capullo, who has drawn him in the past. I believe he even showed up in Dark Knight's Metal already. He shared the pencils for that, and he was saying, I really want to do a Swamp Thing ongoing. It would work so well with Greg, because the guy he's an insane artist. The guy I've said it so many times in the past, and he does it all the time. He'll throw away a day's work. He'll toss a page completely if he's not happy with one of the panels. And with something like Swamp Thing, he will take the time to do every single little vine, every single leaf on Swamp Thing, and make each one unique, or make it exactly the same on the next panel from a different angle and their different lighting. The guy is insane. He is a crazy good artist.
Oh yeah, he could him being on a run of Swamp Thing could be Bernie Wrightson level.
Absolutely, yes, exactly. That would be Capullo's Swamp Thing could go down as, I mean, it would obviously go as one of the best Swamp Thing books in the history of the character. But imagine if it eclipsed the older works by Moore or Wrightson.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it does have the potential, especially with Scott Snyder. The only thing I worry about with Snyder is because he had a very well-received, strong run launching Swamp Thing with the New 52. I'm wondering if he has anything in the tank for a second longer run, or if this would just be 12 and out.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that side. I think Snyder, of the two, is the one to worry more about, because Capullo's work I've never read something with his work that I'm like, you know what, Capullo was just kind of phoning it in. This isn't as strong. But Snyder, like I point to All-Star Batman recently, and that's probably Snyder's weakest work since the New 52. And it's not awful work, but it's like there is a stark difference there between what he normally does. Whereas Capullo, you don't really have that worry with him. So I 100% agree with you.
I would love to see what the two of them would do with Wonder Woman, just because one of the things that was great about the beginning of the relaunch of Wonder Woman with the New 52 was seeing Cliff Chang's version, like new versions of all the Olympian gods, making them more horrific, and like just imagining what Greg Capullo could do with that. Man. It would be insane.
That would be crazy. But yeah, that is our final news story for the week. There's no comic book highlight or movie review, but we will close out the show with some more thoughts on Matt. But before we get into that, let's head into our Patreon shout outs for the week. So the very first shout out goes out to Bobby on Twitter @CubanSlim, who was able to snag me early tickets to next week's Justice League, or by the time this episode releases, this week's Justice League.
Oh, I can't wait. This is the movie that once I see this, I can die. Like that's I don't need for another day to pass after this. The world can explode. It's only the movie I've been waiting for since my first episode of Super Friends.
So you're saying if they don't fight Darkseid in this, you're still going to be okay with it? You'll be like, you know what? I don't need to see the Darkseid fight. I'll be fine.
Honestly, I just need to see like the Justice League together whooping ass. Whoever. I don't care who they're whooping ass on, as long as they're whooping ass.
No, you're right. It's been a long time coming, and something that us as DC fanboys have been like, our day is coming, and it will show up, and it's finally here. Like, we're in the single digits for this fucking thing. And
you don't think we're not going to see like a tease of Darkseid at the end of that movie?
Oh, absolutely, we will.
We're going to like. Okay, end of story. Like I can die a happy man after that.
Yeah, he'll pick up the Infinity Gauntlet and
exactly
do this himself.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say that.
The other Patreon shout out goes out to Neil on Twitter @nmat68, who previously helped out on episode number 266. So another member of the Brokehead Corps who came out to help out Kelli while she's out on maternity leave. So huge thanks to Bobby and Neil and all of our Patreon backers. If you would like your shout out every single month, For as little as $1 a month, that equals out to 25 cents an episode. If you feel like you're getting a quarter's worth of information every single week, head on over to patreon.com/thereasonsimbroke. And for less than the price of a cup of coffee, you too can get your shout out and help out the podcast. And a special thank you as well to decalavenue.com for the help at the $5 decal reward tier. So as we wrap up the episode, Matt, once again, huge thanks for joining us on the show. And was there anything else that you wanted to close out on or cover, or maybe tell some of the fans of the Super Side Up podcast who are listening in on the latest from Matt as they drive, home from work or drive to work, and they're like, "Oh my God, I can listen to Matt again on my phone."
Well, I don't know if I've ever heard anyone actually say that, but no, we still have our social media accounts around. Like I said, we are taking a little bit of a break, or at least I'm taking a little bit of a break. You can find us at Super Side Up on Twitter, Facebook.com/SuperSideUp. And once I figure out what shape to take Super Side Up in, and if I can find some more people who are willing to do it, we may be a little bit more focused and maybe just talk about, instead of trying to cover all the shows, maybe we'll cover a show, per month or whatever. This will be like Flash month. The next month we'll switch to something else. I got some ideas kicking around, and hopefully sometime in 2018 you'll see the full-fledged return of Super Side Up.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see that happen. I've always enjoyed listening to the Super Side Up show, even when, and I've told you this before, even when I haven't seen the episode. Like, you guys covered in a way where I feel like I've seen it and can understand the points that you guys brought up about the shows. And, you guys are great podcasters, and you especially, you've been on this show before, and you've done, you've taken the Super Side Up podcast and built it along with your hosts into something very professional sounding, something fun. And it's not just a review show, but it's, it feels like I'm listening to a couple of buddies talk about, the latest episode that they saw. And, all credit to you and to your hosts, because it was a fun show. It is a fun show. And I'm definitely going to keep my eye out for that inevitable relaunch or return of the Super Side Up podcast.
It'll be the Super Side Up rebirth.
That's right. Or whatever the latest of the big two, whatever they call it, just ape that. Because
Exactly.
it's coming.
I'll use their trade dress and everything. I've got no shame.
All new, all different, rebirth, new. What else is this? There's got to be more than that. ANAD is what they abbreviated it as, legacy.
Yeah.
There's so many. Heroes Return.
Yeah. With the heroic age.
Oh man, so that's amazing. So once again, you can find them at Super Side Up on Twitter. Please be sure to follow him, and there will be links to his social media accounts in the show notes for this episode, so you can just click right there and it'll take you to the app where you can follow Matt and the rest of the crew from the Super Side Up podcast. So
all episodes still going to be archived, so you can still go to Twitter and listen to those there.
Absolutely. Are they they're still up on iTunes too, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So if anything, you can listen to the older episodes from Super Side Up. If there's something that you're still catching up on, check out the description of each episode, because there it will tell you which show they covered. And then you can be like, okay, I finished the fourth episode of the latest season of Supergirl. I can finally watch this or listen to this. So, still listen to that and check them out. And I do want to thank you one last time, Matt, for this last minute edition. You came through like within 5 minutes. You're like, all right, I'm up on Skype. And it's amazing, man. Thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. I was happy to help.
And that'll do it for the episode this week, Brokettes. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at ReasonsI'mBroke, Facebook.com/TheReasonsI'mBroke. And next week, we'll be back with another guest. Once again, I won't mention who it is just in case it doesn't go through, but it will be another familiar voice and a very good friend of mine, very good friend of the show, too. So wrapping it up for this week, I'm Daniel.
I'm Matt.
And I'll see you next week.
See you.